Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vintage Read Show live. Thank you so much for joining us. And as you can see, we have a very special guest with us this evening, Andrew Lowney. Welcome, Andrew.
Welcome. It's always nice to chat with you.
Well, this is very exciting. It's quite an auspicious occasion because we've never actually done a live before. So I'm a little bit nervous, actually. I don't know what
Yes,
you're
me
going to come
too.
out
Gosh,
with. But
we're,
part of
we're, we're
me,
seasoned pros.
yes. Well, part of me is hoping that you do come out with something. Um,
Hopefully it gets you
so,
soon.
hello, everybody. I'm going to pay you attention at the end because I've got so many questions for Andrew and I want to get through them all. But I'm definitely going to present three or four of your comments and questions at the end of this live. So I wanted to kick off with you with obviously Sarah, Duchess of York's rather fawning email to Jeffrey Epstein. And I thought that might have been quite a bittersweet moment for you because you had to take that out of your book, I believe.
Yes, there was a lot of stuff on her relationship with Epstein and the fact that he felt she'd let him down and her rudeness. So yes, it is. In some ways, I don't want to be the sort of mortician for the Yorks. That role can be shared by others. So in some ways, it's good that other people are bringing forward these stories. But yeah, it is frustrating when you know you've got things and the publishers either don't believe it or the lawyers don't feel you can get it through. And I think it's a great coup for the Mail on Sunday and the Sun to have found this email. I'm not quite sure how it emerged, but it's quite clear that this is only the tip of the iceberg, and there's much, much more to emerge.
Yes, yes, I believe so. And I just can't wait for it to drop because I want to see what it is. But her email to Jeffrey Epstein it was sent, people may not realize, but it was sent after his conviction for sex crimes with a minor. And then she told the Evening Standard that she was going to have nothing more to do with him whatsoever. So rather obviously, this email proves that she's been caught out in a pretty bad lie, very dark and duplicitous. Do you think that gives us a really accurate insight into her character?
Yes, absolutely. You can't, just like Andrew, she's a congenital liar. You can't take anything she says absolutely on face value. She'll do anything to save her skin. I think what was so extraordinary about that letter was that she didn't need to be quite so effusive. If she claimed she was under pressure, she could have done something slightly more circumspect. But the fact is that she remained in very close touch with Epstein and very friendly with him. And one of the things that they do is they launder their reputations by affecting to support charities. Andrew, again, material taken out of the book, but Andrew was supporting sex trafficking charities. And of course, he was the spokesman for the national, for the NCCC, which is a charity for children here in Britain. And they use that to sort of cover up. And yet, so on one hand, their private lives, they're behaving one way, and their public lives are very different. So no, it doesn't surprise me one little bit, because the more you know Sarah Ferguson, the more you realize actually what a villain she is.
That's even darker now you've mentioned that. I forgot. I knew that, but I forgot about Prince Andrew sort of being involved in those charities to do with sex trafficking, and that just makes it just horribly dark. As you say, it was very sort of sycophantic and over the top, very effusive. My dear, dear friend Jeffrey, more than one dear. But then I thought, okay, trying to look at this from another perspective, could that have been actually fear rather than cynical opportunism for herself? Do you think maybe she was scared of Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I don't really buy into that. She is a very effusive person who's going to write three dears to you generally anyway. But no, I think, if she was being advised, and so therefore, they would advise her how to phrase the letter,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
would have been, much more measured than the letter it was written. So no, I don't think Epstein. Epstein, and the fact that they just remained in contact after that and friendly. I don't think there was any worry about Epstein. Epstein was playing them and using them, and I don't know how soon they realized that or if they cared. But I think he was always very careful how he ran them.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of a stretch, but I just thought I would ask you for in interests of balance.
Right.
But
We try to be fair.
I didn't really believe it either. Uh, so it was interesting in this email, though, that she seemed to absolve him of the crimes he was convicted for. And the quote is, "We are and have both been in the firing line, both blamed for stuff we have not done." Do you think she has taken it upon herself to absolve Andrew of anything
Oh,
that he might
absolutely.
have
I don't
done?
think I mean, she has no moral boundaries, so she has no understanding, and she's, what is the right behavior and what isn't. They just do what suits themselves. So, absolutely. I mean, they're absolutely tied, the two of them. They can't see, that they've done anything wrong. Andrew, of course, his only regret when I had a member of staff in being interviewed was that he'd lost his royal privileges. Nothing to do about losing his reputation or the way he behaved or bringing his family into disrepute or the fate of the poor victims. It was all about how it affected him. And this will be all about how it's affected her too.
Yes, yes, very
So I know, I don't
self-involved.
think, I mean, she's done this time and time again, the contrition on Oprah Winfrey, she distances herself. That was Sarah. This is someone else. Um,
Yeah.
this is someone who is a complete chancer who just keeps coming back and has absolutely no shame.
Yes, keeps coming back. Teflon Sarah. Sarah Vine pointed out in her opinion piece about it that she really thinks that both the Yorks believe that normal standards of behaviour just don't apply to them. And that's basically what you've just said. Do
Yeah,
you think that the royal family completely banishing these two is long overdue?
absolutely. I can't understand why the family can't get ahead of this story instead of constantly reacting and then hoping it'll go away. It gets worse and worse. Ian Wilson in the Daily Mail today has said this is part of a wider problem, and he's actually naming King Charles. The infected limb is beginning to infect the body, and they need to cut this limb off as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous that she was there in the royal box at Wimbledon, that they've been allowed to come back to family events. They had a police escort all the way from Windsor to go to this funeral.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
why can't they drive themselves up like normal people? Why couldn't they walk in a side door? Why did they have to lurk on the front steps? I had friends inside at the service who said that there was a shock of disbelief because they made themselves a center of attention as they came in and walked to the front row. Most morals slipped in quietly and took places in
Yeah.
the
I think
body
you
of the
said in
church.
your
These
mail
people, it's
piece.
all about them all the time.
Yeah, I think you said in your mail piece, we've got a bit of a delay, so sorry if I seem rude and talking over the top of you because you're freezing a little bit. We've got few technical problems, but never mind, we will plow on. That police escort, was that something that would have been signed off by the king? That was quite gobsmacking to me that they got that.
Yes, I think that would have been signed off by the king. I mean, that's been paid for by the taxpayer. It's the only way you can get an escort like that is if it comes from some. It's
Right,
got to be approved by some committee, and certainly if the king didn't know, his private secretary would have known. But I think Clive
right.
Alderton is way out of his depth here. I mean, he's a complete sycophant, and what you need is someone like Christopher Geidt who actually can knock some heads together. So sadly, I think this is one of the worst crisis for the monarchy in all the time I've been following it.
Yes, I agree. And I'm really sort of quite amazed at how many people are still making excuses and saying, "Oh, it's a family funeral. What can you do?" Well, I did look honestly, if someone in my family was deeply involved with someone that had been convicted of sex crimes and all the other things that have come out about them since, I don't think they'd even be invited to the family funeral. That's this weird disconnect there, isn't it? That people are prepared to make excuses. Why? Is it because they're royal?
Yes, I mean, I think there's still this extraordinary deference, and you protect the monarchy even if you have to protect the bad apples. Actually, George St Andrews, who's the son of the Duchess of Kent, who's a good friend of mine at Cambridge. I mean, he was one of 8 people who came to my 21st birthday party. And I mean, George is a highly intelligent, rather shy man, very decent man. And he would have been appalled, I think, by this behavior. And I think we have the two contrasts there. His mother, who served quietly teaching school children for years under the radar, and these two buffoons who just have to wander into everything and mess it up.
Yeah, I agree. I really felt quite embarrassed and outraged when I saw the behaviour, because off to, the looking at it on the right-hand side, there was Sophie being respectful, there was Princess Anne and Tim Lawrence paying proper attention to the hearse, and the coffin going into the hearse. There was obviously distress in the Kent family, and they were just acting like people at an ordinary funeral, as you should. And I just felt that there was this really strange disconnect with the royals that were sort of centre of the steps. They weren't paying enough attention, I didn't feel, to what was happening. They weren't putting focus on, I know I'm going to wear this and I'm going to get a lot of heat in the comments, but I didn't think King Charles III was suitably paying proper attention to what was happening.
No, it looked like a family reunion and catching up and a bit of reminiscing.
Yes. It came across incredibly arrogant.
And absolutely, there was no dignity. I mean, this is the problem. We were meant to support the dignity of the monarchy. Yeah, we're meant to support the dignity of the monarchy, but they never actually behave in a very dignified way themselves. I mean, there's a story, I can't remember if it was in the book, but I mean, Sarah was meant to be the royal representative when there was a memorial service for victims of a rail crash at Clapham. And she turned up in a sports car, which didn't send out the right signals. This is a woman who claims that she's an aristocrat and knows how to behave. And actually, she's far more vulgar than anyone from a sink estate.
Yeah, I agree. No, it's fascinating that she used the excuse that she was trying to preserve her career as a children's book author when she's dealing with someone who's convicted for crimes against minors. That indicates to me that she's completely detached from reality. And she said that Jeffrey Epstein had her heart. Do you think that Sarah's heart just goes to the highest bidder?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's no surprise that all the men she's been involved with romantically have all been very rich. I mean, they've all been able to help her in terms of her business. This goes right back to her relationship with Paddy McNally. Everything is transactional, I think, for her, and she's drawn to rich and successful people. And all these obsessions, whether it's Tiger Woods or Kevin Costner. I mean, I suspect that there was a bit of an obsession with Epstein, and she kind of thought things might happen. I think there may be more that will come out, shall we say, about the relationship with Epstein, both financially and emotionally.
Yeah. There was, I think it was in your article, the assertion that this should or could send shockwaves through the royal family, but it really can be argued at this point that nothing creates shockwaves through the royal family.
Well, as I say, I think I'm just amazed that they seem to always come too little and too late to anything. There's no attempt to anticipate anything. They must have, thought there was something like this likely to happen. And she has got out under the radar. There were more numbers for her in the Little Black Book than for Andrew. She regularly stayed at Epstein's home, and yet she's never really been properly investigated. She's never actually come clean about what happened, how much money he paid her, whether she paid any money back. She's someone I think is worthy of investigation, and she should be a material witness to the FBI. And I hope that maybe now law enforcement agencies will begin to question her.
Yeah, that would be wonderful, and it seems long overdue, because you just keep sort of reminding yourself that if this was an ordinary person, that would have already happened. And
absolutely.
It's just crazy.
And she is an ordinary person. She's divorced from the royal family. She is actually, she's managed, to exploit this relationship for the last 30 years when actually she's not entitled to it.
It makes me wonder because she seems to be afforded this level of protection. You pointed out that after, they weren't allowed to turn up at Christmas last year, as we know, because of the Chinese spy scandal. And then she turns up at Wimbledon, and, you made that point. She's also, been sort of kissed on the hand by King Charles at Ascot and, all that sort of thing. And I'm wondering, are they protecting her because they know that she was the front or the public face of the whole operation? I wondered in your book when you told us about the sting and the News of the World sting, and I'm wondering, was she always sent out to be the one that would get caught on camera if it went wrong, or the one that was found in the room with the suitcase of money if it went wrong? Is she actually the fall guy?
Well, I mean, we've had several stings on members of the royal family. I mean, I mean, for example, Prince Michael of Kent has always been caught for saying that he's very friendly with Putin and can do business for people. But he has a sort of a chum of his, a member of the House of Lords, who in some ways is the fall guy there. So, they are, and of course, Dominic Hampshire was the fall guy for the Ten Bow story.
Right.
So they can distance themselves a bit more. But I think, if the fact is that Sarah and Andrew were in league hand in hand, and they don't do these things very subtly with cutouts, she was happy to be there center stage. And then there was a huge operation to protect Andrew and say he knew nothing about this. Well, I mean, how could he know nothing about it? How was he meant to help this person if he wasn't going to be involved? So I don't think. I mean, if they were going to be dodgy, they could do it in a rather more sophisticated way. But I'm afraid these are pretty low-level crooks.
Yeah, they are. They are. It's just, really amateurish. So, Andrew, do you think he liked to email Jeffrey very often? Do you think they're going to drop soon?
Yes, we're going to get lots more. We're going to have this. Let's hope. I mean, that the Epstein material hasn't been so weeded that there's nothing in it. But there are still legal cases going on. There's still witnesses that can come forward. Some of the victims are prepared to share their stories. There are, I suspect, all sorts of hand grenades that are still lurking around, and this must be the worry for the royal family and indeed the Yorks.
It seems that I think we're all in agreement, although people have been trying to sort of gaslight me over the last week, that William obviously showed his displeasure at the funeral. And that sort of gives me faith in him and faith in the future a little bit more, because any, decent person would have shown distaste and displeasure at Andrew's sidling up. Now, you had a friend at the funeral, you said, and was it in your piece that you said when the Yorks actually walked in, there was an audible gasp?
Yes, I don't know if it was in the piece, but yes, certainly there was. They came clattering down the centre aisle to their seats in the front row. I mean, his mother was a cousin of the husband of this woman. It's not a very close relationship. And to muscle in on someone, a family gathering like this, and to treat it like it was some big event where they should be taking precedence. He should have just quietly slipped in somewhere at the back, and made themselves known if they wanted discreetly. But it's always to say about them. They have to be. These two are complete narcissists, and they have to be the center of attention, and they can't see the bad optics. I mean, it's extraordinary. Time and time again, they repeat the same mistakes, and I saw it with which is some of Andrew's behaviour. He is told not to do something, and he just comes back and does it himself. Someone was suggesting that there's some form of autism with both of them, that there's some screw missing because this isn't normal behaviour.
Yeah, I think that might be a rather convenient sort of diagnosis, though, at this stage, isn't it? Like, it sort of just seems like maybe a bit of handy excuse. That's very cynical of me, but I just feel like it's a little too late. Now, you were told that William was absolutely furious. Now, can we assume that that fury is still going on between the king and William?
Well, I think the relationship between the king and William is bad. I mean, the king, in some ways, there he is trying to forge a link with Harry, which kind of, must annoy William and kind of sort of disses him. And then we have the Charles also showing, kissing the hand of Fergie and being friendly with Andrew when, William has made his own views very clear. So I think that, the worrying thing is that there's clearly an increasing gap between Charles and the heir to the throne, and that is bad in terms of constitutional issues, quite apart from any personal ones.
Yes. In your article that you wrote, I thought you were, quite kind to King Charles with this one line. This is the quote: a courteous and forgiving man who feels they should be included in family events. But deep down, do you really think this is compassion or do you think it's arrogance?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think there is this strong sense of entitlement with all the family. I think that Charles perhaps feels a responsibility that he's taken on from the Queen for this perhaps most vulnerable of her children, or certainly the one who keeps getting into messes.
Yeah.
And he's sort of prepared to put his own reputation on the line to protect this guy. And I think we do keep coming back to the fact that they're scared of what the Yorks might do. Sarah's written 3 autobiographies. Each one has got slightly more revealing, and she has, I know, constantly threatened to spill the beans, whether it's through some third party or herself. And the only pressure they have is pressure they can put on her about what they would do to her children and their roles. And that's always been the controlling factor. And that was one of the controlling factors in the divorce, that they would take away the children. And that kind of kept her quiet for a while. So, there's a lot of, I suspect there's more going on behind the scenes than we're seeing. But I do think that, it's a bit like, when Diana died and the Queen, kind of finally had to listen to public opinion and change. I think they need to suddenly realize, the strength of feeling against the Yorks and indeed against entitlement in the royal family as a whole. I mean, if we've got the Daily Mail and A.N. Wilson saying this, then they really have got problems. And if you look at the
Yes.
comments in even, the Times and the Telegraph, they're almost universally critical, not just of the Yorks, but of other members of the royal family. The support for the monarchy is now about 50-50. And, with a population that dies off, and it's mostly people who are over, let's say, 50 who support the royal family. Young people couldn't care less, and we see Republic is actually feeling much more sort of confident. We see a lot of, I'm giving talks. I'm struck by, I go to these seaside towns full of retired people, and they're all saying time for the end to the monarchy. I think they are in last chance saloon now.
Really, really, despite the
It's,
popularity of William and Catherine, because they're still sort of top of the charts.
yeah,
But I
I think it's
agree.
happened much, much more quickly.
Yes, I think times sort of seems to be running out now. People are so frustrated and angry and they want some action. You did point out that you think that Charles is very aware of just how toxic this is to the royal brand, and yet he seems to just not take any action. Do you think maybe that, look, if we're just going to be really frank, does that just indicate the fact that he's got a lot to fear from Sarah Ferguson and Andrew, whereas William, who everyone's pinning their hopes on that he's going to do something to finally banish them, he doesn't have as much to fear?
Well, no, I think William has some stories that could emerge. But maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he feels they can be shut down. But you're absolutely right. There are clearly skeletons in Charles's closet that Sarah will know about, and have been shut down in the past. If you remember the Paul Burrell case,
Yes.
and interesting. Paul Burrell has popped up again for another 3rd volume. Always difficult to tell what is true and what isn't in Paul Burrell's memory, particularly since he hasn't been close to the royal family for many years now.
Mm,
But there's always Paul Burrell hanging around these people too. So
yes.
they can't always sleep very happily at night, I suspect.
No, it's really interesting that Paul Burrell's book sort of popped up and Grant Harold's book popped up, and Grant Harold's book is so sycophantic and so obviously a PR exercise. It was quite sickening, really. I've got a few comments. Oh no, I've got one more thing I wanted to bring up that just came out today, and it was that the King, it was announced today, has made it absolutely clear, this was in the Telegraph and also the Times, that the Duke of Sussex cannot be half in or half out member of the royal family. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, well, do they really think the public are absolutely stupid? Because in the next sentence they were saying, oh, we're going to organise another private family occasion, and the Duke of Sussex will be seen with the King so everyone can tell that they get on well. And I think, well, that's just to fuel the grift. I mean, that's just what Sarah's been doing for the last how many years, earning millions off turning up at Christmas, turning up at Easter, turning up for funerals. And it's all just part of the grift. Who do they think they're kidding about this half in, half out nonsense?
Exactly. I know. I mean, I don't understand why he can't be more ruthless. As you say, for outsiders, it's very obvious that any association they will clearly exploit.
Yes, yes,
And maybe he's hoping that Harry has said to him, no, I won't do any more grifting. But of course, Meghan will. And we had Harry basically breaking the terms of the arrangement within a day or so. So I mean,
yes.
Harry can't be trusted, and I don't think Andrew and Sarah can be trusted. They need to, as I say, cut the limb off
Yeah, yeah, rip the band-aid off.
because it's
That's what I
infecting the
think.
whole body politic.
Yes, even if they've got something to hide, just let it come out because it's going to all come out anyway, and they will generate a whole lot of goodwill if they actually do cut them off, I would imagine, at this point. This is a comment from one of our viewers, Brass Chick. I don't think Charles thought that Andy and Sarah would be so brazen. I think he's somewhat naive at times, hoping that he'll learn from it. Do you have any confidence in that?
Yeah, I think she's absolutely right. I mean, I think they're both brazen and he's naive. And I asked someone the other day, I think in relation to the funeral, whether they were brazen or stupid, and the person said they were both. But absolutely, but he knows his brother. You know, he knows his brother. He's known him for over 60 years, and I mean,
Yeah,
none of this is a surprise from the way Andrew's behaved all the way through his life, and indeed Sarah Ferguson.
yeah,
This isn't
yeah.
an isolated incident. It's part of a repeated pattern of behavior. And it's a bit like if the Queen had dealt with Andrew as a young boy and set boundaries and disciplined him, we might not have the problems we have now. And someone needs to bite the bullet and deal with these people.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. He's still a vice admiral. He still goes to Knight of the Garter lunches. He's still a Councillor of State. We've got to remember that he's eighth in line. Harry is fifth. Sixth and seventh are Archie and Lilibet, who couldn't actually fulfill that role.
Yeah.
So there's, if there was an accident to Charles and William, we would actually suddenly find that Andrew was standing in and making decisions.
Yeah.
That should have gone. I mean, the people of York should be demonstrating in the streets,
Oh
outraged.
no, don't say that. We'll get done for incitement or something. We
They
were
should
only
be.
joking. That was a facetious comment. Um,
They
but
should, yes. Well, they should voice their displeasure in a very discreet way.
yes, yes. Just write a letter to the editor or something. Um, the Council of State thing I found extraordinary at the time because, they said that they brought Anne in and Edward in, I believe, yeah, so that they would never have to call on them. But it was such a stupid fix. It was so. It just sort of reeked of the fact that the palace didn't want that bill to actually remove them as Council of Estates. Instead, they offered two up in front of. And it just seemed like, such connivance and just not an adequate response at all. There's another comment that's really interesting from Renee. The King seems to be confused between forgiveness and enabling despicable behaviour. So that's a good sort of distinction, isn't it? There's forgiveness and Christian duty, and then there's actually enabling really appalling behaviour.
Yeah, well, and I think it applies also to the Queen. If we think back, and I, it's not a popular view that I, it's something I found. I'm just the messenger, but I mean, the fact the Queen was an enabler for Andrew.
Yeah,
This wasn't forgiveness or just a mother. This was someone who actually helped him with some of his activities as special trade envoy and to make money. So, I think one begins to think that maybe, there's not just a few rotten apples, but maybe this is a diseased orchard. Uh,
yeah,
and that's the worry.
yes,
There are lots of things that could be done behind the scenes in terms of Christian forgiveness, but they're not done in public view at funerals and kissing hands at Ascot. I mean, this is extraordinary naivety.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it kind of worries one because if this is meant to be our king, it doesn't augur well. And it's sad because the monarchy were actually being deployed in a very effective way, soft power to sort of help get various trade deals across the line and basically suck up to Donald Trump. And this was a moment they could have gained a lot of kudos. And I
yes,
think you're right. I think there would be a lot of kudos if people cut Andrew adrift and Sarah Ferguson. I don't think anyone supports this.
no,
So it's weird, but it's a
yeah,
family. They protect themselves. I've just watched The Godfather. And I mean, there are so many parallels there about the
yeah,
family.
there are, yeah,
The
there are,
family is to be protected at every opportunity, and they can't
yeah,
get this. They can't get their heads around this. The problem
no.
is that people will begin to think, well, do we really want a family, or do we actually maybe now want a president?
Well, yeah, well, that terrifies me too. I think anybody with extreme power terrifies me. But the other thing is, you bring up a good point about the royal family doesn't really work in the way it should. And I think there's this thing that the royal family is the public face of an enduring and important institution that works really, really well. But they're the public face, and they seem to be, quite frankly, stuffing it up. So would it be better to stop the family bit and just have a monarch? Like when William ascends to the throne, he's the king. Well, Catherine's the queen. But stop all this sort of extended family thing. Do you think that's probably the model that William wants?
Well, I think certainly, he wants a slimmed down monarchy. I think he wants a more European style monarchy.
Yeah,
There are these tensions. People love the pomp. They love the sense of the family of the nation. There that we all love seeing the Wales as children there, as sweet children, well brought
yeah,
up children, and so we like this. And this was, of course, the image that was created by, particularly by George V and George VI, and the Queen tried to present, but it's kind of unraveling. But yeah, I've just been reading Valentine Lowe's book, which is about the relationship between the Crown and the government. And there are various moments there. I don't know if you're going to interview Valentine, but there are various moments in royal history where the royals basically are told what to do by the government. Most obviously when Diana died, but they basically take their orders from the government, and that's when it works best. The problem is at the moment they're not really taking any orders at all. They're doing their own thing, and they're very undisciplined. They're not got their house in order. And I think you're absolutely right. A much tighter operation would be better without these offshoots. We would still have Hello Magazine puffing Eugenie's latest dress, but no one would care about it, and she would have no influence. And I suspect she would be less attractive to some of the people who are, sucking up to the two York daughters.
yes, yes, I agree. I agree. Valentine Lowe's coming on next week. So I'll
Aha!
be
Well, I
able to
should have
ask
guessed.
him. Yeah, I'll be able to ask him lots of questions. Got a few more comments and then we better let you go. Jacinta Allen says that none of us are surprised to read this headline, which is good because people are, really up with things now. But she asks, what is the next step? And I think in this live, we've pretty much spelt that out, haven't we? Banishment.
Yes, I think so. I mean, both of them now. I mean, He's got places. And exactly what they did with the Duke of Windsor. They didn't want him overshadowing George VI. He did keep to his side of the bargain generally. And that's what Andrew needs to do. He needs to quietly disappear to Abu Dhabi, and frankly take Sarah with him. And we don't want to see them popping up at any of these occasions ever again.
Yes,
He can
I
quietly go
agree.
and stay in Balmoral without us knowing. And that can be the family forgiveness. But we don't want him appearing in his puffed up way ever again in public. And we certainly
I
don't want
agree.
police escorts taking him anywhere.
No, well, I think we will end it on that note because we are in perfect agreement, and I think probably everybody watching would be in perfect agreement with that. Thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on and chatting to us about this. I'm sure there is more to come, so I look forward to having you back and, sort of delving into things further. Thank you to everyone that joined us on our very first live stream. Sorry that we had a bit of a crummy connection. We'll work on that for next time, and we'll see you again very soon. I'm going to wave goodbye now and click out. This is always the awkward moment, so I'll try and do it quickly. Bye, everyone.